In all the years I've been doing clutch kits, a problem with the highest frequency has been putting the helix in wrong in the QRS secondary. So it would go in 90 degrees and it wouldn't be in the roller track. The other problem would be is forgetting to take the white swivel washer out of the stock helix and putting it in the new helix to separate the spring from the helix, so you won't get the metal to metal contact. I kind of have that dialed in now as far as going through a checklist with people when they purchase a kit. They see the checklist to go through to make sure that the swivel washer and the helix is installed correctly. And now another problem comes up with great frequency, and I think it's because the market is flooded with mufflers now. So a customer puts the clutch kit in, and then they look at the setting sheet, they put in their recommended grams for whatever elevation they're running at, and then the engine speed's not where it should be. So instead of being, say, at 8,000, it's at 7,800 or 7,700. They click her up, RPM doesn't change. Or they click her up and the engine feels weaker. They pull flyweight out. They remove some pivot bolt weight, or in the TRA, some of the set screw weight, or whatever they're using, and thinking they lighten the flyweight and the engine speed should raise, but it doesn't. And you can take out so much flyweight that it's worse than it ever was. So a lot of times I tell the customer, go put the stock muffler back on, set the grams back to where the setting sheet says, and go. And people do, many people do, if they have the stock muffler still, and the RPMs come back. Yeah, pulls like a freight train. What happened? All he did was change the muffler. They took their aftermarket muffler off, they put the stock muffler back on, and everything's fine. So today I'm going to talk about mufflers. I really don't know that much about them. I've done a bunch of research over the years, many years, 20, a little bit reading here and there, and just the experience of dealing with customers who've run different cans, different brands, and seeing what's happened to their power peak RPM staying the same or changing. So this here is a tuned pipe, or the expansion chamber. So this baby here makes the power. And this is a muffler, stock muffler. Here's a nice Diamond S can. Oh, that's beautiful right there. And this is a Turbo Alice cooker can. Just some of the ones I personally have. So back to here, this expansion chamber, this tuned pipe makes the horsepower. And these here don't. They either make the same, help make the same, or they're gonna make less horsepower. If you read tech papers, they call them mufflers, silencers, or stingers. But the general term out there is can. And now, it's story time, kids. Here's the story book. Here, have a look at this book here. All right. We stopped making these. Probably because of me. Page 66, troubleshooting and tech tips. Page 66 and 67, troubleshooting and tech tips. After mufflers or cans. Look at this. Here you go. Oh, and a dyno sheet. A dyno sheet. We're not going to look at the dyno sheet. Who cares? But aftermarket mufflers or cans. So we'll read the highlighted portion. One parameter that is extremely important, and more so with the introduction of PowerTech engine management systems, is the overall muffler's system back pressure. Oh, there's that term, back pressure. I never said it. It's their words. With the introduction of the 800R last season and the various RPM fluctuation issues we experienced, a decision was made to dyno and validate fuel flow and back pressure. Oh, back pressure. Some people hate that word, back pressure. It's not back pressure. Validate fuel flow and back pressure on a number of the after mufflers or cans that we have seen on dealers or customers' units in the field. Next paragraph. You will note that a number of these cans actually lose as much as 6-7 horsepower. The increased back pressure that some of these silencers produce can actually cause the engine to go into detonation. If the knock sensor is performing properly, it should sense the abnormal vibrations stemming from the detonation occurring and will change the fuel and ignition timing parameters via the ECM until detonation stops. I love it. So it's not my words, it's their words. No, kind of the focus is on the muffler, not necessarily this. Gord Jennings' two-stroke tuning handbook, that how to build pipes. So I went looking through his book there, I have it, and I just took something out of it. Outlet pipes. Outlet pipe. It is simply a pressure bleed resistor which prevents the free escape of exhaust gases from inside the expansion chamber and thereby creates a back pressure. The outlet pipe is much more sensitive to diameter than length. Is that this one or is that this one? I think it's this one, or a combination of both. There is a very peculiar problem associated with the outlet pipe that you should know about. Simply stated, the problem is that if you make the outlet pipe too small in diameter or give it too much length, both tending to over restrict the chamber's outlet passage in terms of flow capacity, then there will be a price to be paid in overheating burnt pistons. I only know that if the outlet is too restricted, engine temperature is greatly elevated. From what I've seen, this increase in temperature is especially sharp at the piston crown. I know firsthand. So you should keep a sharp eye on your engine's piston. And don't burn it down. The next thing you see, I think this is a joke he put in here, but not really. The next thing you see, after you see ash, there will be a hole. So I guess that's an ash hole. Actually, the worst side of this whole matter of selecting the right outlet pipe is that while power rises quite sharply as you work your way down from too large an outlet pipe diameter, there will be only a slight decrease in power output when you have gone too far in restricting the outlet. I read a couple of papers at JETIR, Journal of Emerging Technologies and Innovative Research. Stinger, the tailpipe or stinger, is important as its length and size have influence on the pipe, power, and bottom end, as well as the engine's resistance to holing pistons. The ash and then the hole. Smaller stinger diameter produces more peak horsepower, but increased likelihood of melted pistons because they bottle up the exhaust heat. Big stinger diameters boost bottom end at expense of peak power. Oversized diameters must perform once at all engine speeds due to insufficient pressure. Oversized diameters must perform once at all engine speeds due to insufficient pressure. The stinger has important effect on the length of the pipe and volume. Oh, here we go. Excessive back pressure can negatively affect performance or melt the front of the piston off. It can lead to reduction in power, increased fuel consumption, exhaust temperatures, and emissions will suffer. It will reduce exhaust valve and turbocharger life, blah, blah, blah. I had a customer with a problem, 850 G4 chassis, come from low elevation, and he went out somewhere in Montana to 5,000 feet thereabouts. And he was having a low RPM problem. Pulling weight out and clickering up, and he still was getting low RPM. So we went back and forth, and I told him to put the stock muffler on, and he did bring it with him, and he put it back on, and engine speed corrected after he changed the weight back after what he needed to go 5,000 to 7,000 feet. So Chris solved the problem with his low RPM by putting the stock muffler back on. Now, this certain brand, I know one of my dealers, clutch kit dealers, he's not impressed with them not impressed with too many mufflers. He's got a dyno and he runs a lot of cans on the dyno. He's made many pulls. Now I carbon copied this email to Chris, so when Mars emails me, Chris gets it too. So this is from Mars at PWR Performance. Yes, we dynoed all cans on the market and they almost all lose around 3 to 4 horsepower on average. But this particular can lost 9 horsepower on our dyno. So when we're trying to add power with parts like this guy's exhaust system, and you have something robbing that much power, it's pretty well a waste of time. Okay, so Mars is not the only person I know who's got a dyno and has seen horsepower loss by putting on whatever muffler. In 2007, a whole bunch of us went out to Cook City. At least 5 guys in our group had my clutch kit. Everybody with the clutch kit was set up for about 9,000 feet elevation. So the first day we go out to ride, my engine won't do over 6,800 RPM. What's going on? Everybody else is running 8,000. Clicker 3, 16 grams, and just going like Jack the Bear. But me, I'm running at 6,800. No matter what I did, changing the clicker, taking out flyweight, that made it worse. Going to clicker 6, 7 grand, going down a hill. Just, sound like a mooing cow. What the heck is going on? All these guys' sleds are running good. I even met people there who were running my clutch kit that were in Cook City, and they're having no problem. What's going on? So the answer to this, or the story to this, is on my website in the technical page, the pull down tab, 850 cans, 800 cans, exhaust. It's the article below the 965 and 990 ramps. So I'll read the article from that page. My normal riding area is from 660 to 1700 feet. 2007 we go to Montana, ride from 85 to 10,000 feet. I brought my 800, which had a stock pipe, but aftermarket muffler. Just like the rest of my customers who use my clutch kit at high elevation, I installed 16 grams in clicker 3 for 8,500 feet. So first day we leave the trailer and drive out to the road to get to the snow. At full throttle, I could not get the engine over 6,800 RPMs. That engine should run 8 grand with 16 grams flyweight using these ramps and this primary spring and the clutch kit at this elevation range. I know these settings work. There's guys in my group where they're getting 8 grand. There's people here with my clutch kit, customers, that are getting 8 grand. I've seen the sticker on the sled. So my customers running out here have close, if not the same setting I'm using. I go back to the trailer, I lessen the pin weight, test again, 6,800. I mean, I'm just driving down the street at a lower elevation. There should be a little bit more power at 7,500 feet than 9,000 feet. I should at least rev to 7 grand. What in the heck is going on? So I go back to the trailer, I take out more clutch weight, 6,800 RPMs. In fact, it's getting worse. I change from clicker 3 to 6, and I get 6,900, 7,000 RPM. I emptied the weight to 11 gram, empty pin, 6,900 RPMs. Heck with it, go the other way with the grams. Instead of going at 11, I went right to 20. Let's break its back and see what's gonna happen. 6,800 RPMs. I changed the main jet up and down using the swing of 100 sizes. Still 68, 6,900. What's going on? Sled runs at home with 23 grams, just like all these other guys do, and goes like Jack the Bear, 8 grams, woohoo! But here, I had a pretty sour face going on, I'll tell you. So on the second day, I make a call to Dallin at the old dmax.ca. That guy used to build open mod 600 and 800 engines and custom made pipes, has a dyno. He's a guy I could get a hold of easy, so I called him. So I told him the chain of events that got me to the point of calling him. And the first comments out of his mouth is, the exhaust pipe is not seeing enough pressure to scavenge and build RPMs. Okay, I don't understand that, but okay, whatever you say, Dallin. That particular muffler is not allowing the internal pressure inside the pipe to raise high enough to get the engine to pump correct at 9,000 feet. Okay, Dallin says, put your stock muffler back on and see what happens. I didn't bring one. Dallin talked more about how to build pipe pressure, and he talked about how mountain guys have been known to run a bolt in the outlet of the muffler to gain RPMs. So say, I'll use this out. I can remember Ian talking about this in his clutching and engine school in Minneapolis in a hotel. We went for a seminar in like 1988 or 89. And I remember him talking about this. Drilling a hole here, welding a nut, putting a bolt on the outside, and then screwing the bolt in to reduce the diameter or the area on the inside of the pipe, and then watch what happens on the dyno, on a dyno run. So this is what Dallin's talking about. So he said mountain guys have been known to run a bolt on the outlet of the muffler to gain RPMs, and it doesn't need that much to choke the outlet. You must be careful of the amount of choke. The engine can detonate abruptly and severely. Don't rely on your EGTs as if it's a knock sensor. The EGT can't measure detonation. The shocks from that event will pound away the front of the piston, choking the exhaust pipe's an old drag race trick for say like a 7-second or less pull. Don't do that, Joe. Dallin continues on the phone. So as the elevation increases, the atmosphere pressure drops. To make proper power for your engine, say the pipe has to reveal 4 psi inside of the pipe under wide open throttle. So he says, you're gonna go wide open, Joe. The exhaust gas that's coming out the pipe, if you had a pressure gauge and you were able to put it on the center section of the exhaust pipe, say at 8,000 RPM, it should read 4.0 psi. And I didn't know if I heard that right. 4.0? 4.0? Yes, 4.0. So with your stock muffler, it's choked to make 4 psi, 4.0 psi full throttle. It'll produce 8,000 RPM. You took that stock muffler off and you put this can on, and now you're getting 6,800 RPM because it's not 4.0 psi. It's 3.6 or 3.2 or 3.1 or 3.0. The internal pipe pressure is less than what your stock muffler is. So your engine can't make RPM. As a second witness on this, I go downtown, not a far walk down to the Esso and see Rick at the Cook City Esso and talk with him, and he snickers at me and he giggles and he says, I see that RPM problem all the time from you flatlanders out here. Go put the stock muffler back on. I said, I didn't bring it. He goes, well, go borrow one, or there's one right there, $249, nice HPS can. We know it works. Put that on your engine, $8 grand. Other than that, Joe, y'all have a good time now. Here. Frustrated, I'm not spending $249 or whatever it is for an HPS can. Maybe I should have. Either way, I'm glad I didn't, because I probably wouldn't be able to talk about this if that never happened to me. Or, well, I haven't told you what happened yet. Okay, go back to talk Dallin on the phone. Hey D-Max, what do you think if I took a pair of vice grips and I started to bend the outlet of this and choke it off, just like you say? So instead of doing the nut and bolt trick, because I can't do that right out there, but if I took grip pliers and started bending the outlet, do you think the RPM would raise? And he goes, yeah, I will. And the engine speed will raise, but you might get yourself into a problem of detonation. And if you go full throttle in a pull, I don't know how many seconds it's going to take, but you could melt the front of your piston off before you even know it. So what did I do? I took a pair of grip pliers and I bent the outlet. I bent the outlet of the muffler. Oh yeah. And first off, I set the jets back to what it should be for 9,000 feet. I put 16 grams back in, clicker 3, belt deflection. All right, we're ready to go. Okay. Bend outlet time. So I take vice grips and I start bending it. Take it for a run. All I had to do is go burn down the street. Nothing's happening. Come back. Bend some more. 200 RPM. Holy shit. 7,100. Ooh, okay, this is starting to work. Bend a bunch more. And like 75, 7,600. I did another pull, 8 grand. And I thought, just a little bit more, right? 8,200. What? Go down the street. Friggin', yeah, this thing's just ripping. So I go down the street, take a left on the road, go out of town, and you know, anybody's been to Cook City, you go up the road a bit and then there's a switchback that comes like this and the road goes out in the back. Or you can just go straight up the hill right there. So that's what I did. I jumped the snowbank, whoa, do this pull up the hill, friggin' yeah! Oh, that that was not good. I mean, it went like holy shit. So, all right, get off, pull the side panel off. It can't even turn the engine. I mean, it sees solid. So I take the belt off and I yank the sled around. I start pushing it down the hill, and it's steep enough there. I was able to come out to the snowbank and then pull it onto the road, and I just left it there. Walked back into town. Waited for the guys to come back. Borrowed a sled. Went and towed my sled back and pulled the head off. Yep, melted pistons. I think I have a picture of a piston around here somewhere. So I'm like, fuck. Well, what do you do, right? So the guys are all laughing at me. Oh, well, kind of laughing, but not too much, right? But like this guy Nathan goes, well, Joe, I see you learned another way to blow up an engine. Okay. And then there was the jokes. How many mufflers does it take for Joe to blow up an engine? Okay, note to self. Don't bend outlet, haha. Put the stock muffler back on or borrow one, or use a proven excellent substitute. Oh yeah, I totally forgot. Not reading this. I borrowed an HPS can, $8,000. Turn around, come back, put my AN can on, $6,800. Borrow stock muffler from a similar sled, $8,000. I come back, put the AN can on, $6,800. Didn't change the clutching. I just changed the muffler. That's it. And that's what happened. So years ago, when I used to do a bit of drag racing, grass drag racing, in the early 2000s, we used to get checked by the tech person, and what they would do is they'd get us to take the springs off here and pull the muffler apart, and then they'd look inside here to see if there was a choke. So what that choke would do, it would restrict the flow of the exhaust gas going out, build a little bit more pressure in the pipe, and you could add a little bit of clutch weight, a gram, maybe 2 grams, to get the correct RPM, whatever you're going to run for that track. So a kind of famous engine builder in the snowmobile world, a Canadian engine builder, told us, hey, if you want to cheat a little bit, get around it's cheating, but it's not cheating. It's kind of like Smokey Eunuch. You know, if it's not written there, then you're not cheating, right? So, okay, so when the referee checks the pipe to see if there's a choke, and there's no choke, okay, it looks fine, stock, put it all together, go race. What this engine builder said to do was, with this pipe upside down, this is actually upside down here, somewhere around here, mark out about the size of a quarter, like put a quarter there, and take chalk and go around the quarter, measure around the quarter, right about here. Somewhere in this area, with a quarter, hold the quarter down. These shields are gone, by the way, so it's just a bare pipe. So you have the quarter on the pipe, and then you take a chalk and go around the quarter, take it away. This spot here you're going to heat with a torch. And you get it going orange, and then take a ball peen hammer and while the metal's orange, bang, 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 till that divot is, until the divot that you make fills up like the diameter of the quarter. What that little bump does, it restricts the flow instead of sticking a choke in there. So you stick the pipe together, go for a run, over revving. Okay, holy shit, we can add a gram here. Add a gram, pull 7,800, and there'd be your run. One of the things that he told us to is, don't run more than 500 feet full throttle. Burp the engine a lot as soon as you can when you let off. So we cross the finish line, like that. Burp the throttle on the whole way on the return. If you over rev, then add a bit of grams to get it to pull 7800 again. Come off the line at say 7550 and try to cross the finish line at 7850 RPM. So the purpose of me saying this is to have a proof to show like what I did in Cook City with the vice grips on the outlet of the muffler, that I choked it too much. Yeah, it went like a rape ape and pulled really good and then blew up. So in this case here, you're 6 seconds in full throttle with this divot in the pipe to create a little bit more back pressure than stock and show you what too much back pressure can do. So the opposite end, not enough back pressure, then your engine will run lower RPM. It won't want to run at 8 grand, it'll want to run at 7800, 7700. And you could take flyweight out and you could go to clicker 20. And there's no way that if this muffler doesn't make the correct back pressure, the engine's just not going to rev. And then what do? You blame the clutch kit. It doesn't matter what vendor, me, any of my competition, they all go through the same thing too. Dealing with customers who have a muffler that doesn't create the correct back pressure to make RPM. And then they call the clutch kit junk. Oh, the clutch kit's junk. No, it's that stupid fucking pipe that you put on there that changed the RPM. It lowered the power peak, right? From 8 grand down to 7,800. And that's it. That's where your power peak is. It's not over here. It's here now. Because instead of having 4.0 PSI, now you got 3.2. 3.1 PSI, especially at high elevation where the pressure's down. Now it's even going to be worse. So ideally, if you're going to run somebody's clutching, run it with the stock muffler first. And then once you say, yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be, and it goes good, the clutch kit works great for you, say, then go take that off and put your aftermarket can on. And if the RPMs change, then you know something's going on with this can. A little bit more from Dynotech Jim. There are several factors that sled owners consider when selecting a muffler to replace the OEM unit in differing order depending on where, how, and how they ride. Weight, horsepower output compared to stock, sound levels, decibels, airflow, capacity, back pressure. His words, back pressure. This company, sent 2 pipes, both with stamped aluminum insulated heat shields. Kind of know who that is. One for low elevation riders who like to run wide open throttle for miles, and another tighter pipe for high elevation riders. He said tighter pipe. For high elevation riders or low elevation riders who like maximum corner to corner acceleration without having to wait for the horsepower to arrive, pipe temperature to climb to optimal pipe back pressure. Back pressure and airflow, cubic feet per minute, is critical in selecting a muffler that's best suited to your typical riding conditions. Well, you don't get that information from any of these can manufacturers. None. Flatlanders who run the trails and lakes wide open throttle for a quarter mile at a time or more might expect airflow and back pressure as shown on the dyno. The madmen that like to run wide open throttle for many miles at a time can expect the back pressure to rise and CFM to drop due to the temperature of the metal in the pipe and muffler and the gases inside continuing to climb. There's a great article on the effects of climbing pipe temperature by running hot for very long periods of time at wide open throttle at Dynotech Jim's Dynotech Research, article volume 5, number 4, pages 13 to 16, Hot Pipe Cold Facts by Kevin Cameron. The other variable is altitude. Since mountain riders typically suffer with thin, low horsepower producing air, the actual CFM their engines pump is low, creating lower effective back pressure even when the pipe's smoking as they run wide open throttle at a time either burrowing under windshield high powder or snow obstructing the muffler outlets or climbing snow-covered walls. So even the tightest muffler is tested at 700 foot altitude for 20 seconds at wide open throttle might be fine at 10,000 feet for minutes at wide open throttle. So with this crazy sine pressure wave, the sound wave that goes in and out of the pipe, it may explain why with some mufflers pressure is higher at lower RPM than at the horsepower peak RPM. I just mentioned that. Other mufflers have different pressure curves from low revs to high. And then, for example, if we look at the Jaws Trail muffler, it has lower peak pressure than stock, yet makes a bit more horsepower than stock. Could that muffler be creating a different shaped sine wave that has high peak at just the right time, but lower average? Okay, now they're getting in the black magic part of engines. This is what I don't get. People say clutching's black magic. No. Engines are black magic. Clutching's easy. The flyweight grams are a mirror of engine torque. And when your engine, you did something to it, this or this pipe, right, or another pipe, and you move the power peak from 8,000 down to 7,800 because this thing's not making the right back pressure, then you're going to put different weight in to get the engine to run at 7,800. Your flyweight is a mirror of engine torque. If your engine makes this much torque, you need this much flyweight to make the power at 8,000 RPM example. If the engine's not making that torque, then you're not going to have that flyweight, and you can click her up. It's not going to do anything. If you can get the engine to go from 7,800 to 8,000 somehow by raising the clicker, taking out all the flyweight, then it's going to be weak as heck, because when you go over the power peak, the horsepower drops off, right? So now, if you had it at $8,000 and now you're at 7,800 because of the muffler, and you take the weight out, and it's running $8,000, well, you could be down like 10 horse. Easy, 12 horse, 200 RPM. The way the curve falls off of a two-stroke, it's pretty sharp. Higher you rev, it's even more sharp of a fall on horsepower. So Dynatech Jim continues to write, I try to keep stock mufflers for some models in case a dyno customer arrives with a poorly designed can. As I recall, the worst can ever was 10 horsepower less than stock. It's like Buddy Marsh from PWR Performance saying that this certain brand can, 5, 6, 7, 8 horsepower loss, one of the worst ones he had. So each can produce a different power output based on the shape to make the sound wave do whatever it's doing in the pipe and the pressure, internal pipe pressure at full throttle. Too much pressure, engine speed can rise, detonation, knock the front of the piston off. Too low a pressure, low RPM. Oh, sounds like a mooing cow when you pin the throttle. There's no revs there. There's no power there. Okay, home stretch. Some aftermarket pipes will mate to the stock muffler. So you could have, say, for fun, a lack of a better example, SLP, starting line product pipe, and a stock muffler. The donut for the aftermarket pipe could be shaped to fit this pipe and the stock muffler. If you have an aftermarket pipe where the stock muffler won't mate to the pipe, then contact the pipe manufacturer to get an adapter donut. So you know, as we go higher in elevation, the atmospheric pressure drops. Natural engines lose power as elevation increases. The engine loses 5 horsepower per 1,000 feet as you go up, average two-stroke. It doesn't matter, Cat, Yamaha, two-strokes, Polaris, Skidoo, what have you, doesn't matter. Every 1,000 feet you go up, you lose 5 horsepower. 5 horsepower is like 200 RPM. 200 RPM is 1 gram. 1 gram is 5 horsepower. 1 gram is 1,000 feet, or a clicker position. So it's all like this kind of constant. I'll read this out to you here. So this is a constant. 1 gram equals 200 RPM equals 5 horsepower equals 1,000 feet equals 1 clicker equals 1,000 feet equals 5 horsepower, 1 gram, 200 RPM. It does not matter what sled brand you have, it's just a phenomenon that happens. So now a turbo comes along and adds more air into the engine. The Skidoo engine adds approximately 0.5 psi per 1,000 feet of elevation increase. But for some reason, the can, not this can, this is a good can, still can affect the power peak RPM of the turbocharged engine. So I got this little neat thing from Skidoo, and this is a pipe pressure tube from a factory turbo. It's mounted here somewhere, and the steel line comes off to the rubber pipe to this pressure sensor. And this is the plug that goes to the wiring harness, to the ECU. So now that's kind of what it looks like there. Right, screws in, there you go. looks like a brake fitting, and the internal pipe pressure is transferred through this tube assembly. One side, this is hooked to the ECU to measure the pipe pressure. So now you can look at the other side of the ECU, is looking at air pressure outside. So the ECU senses outside pressure, looks at the internal pipe pressure, and kind of resolves what's going on outside to get the inside pressure to equalize to maintain horsepower. As the sled goes up in elevation, you're losing half a PSI every 1,000 feet. So the ECU adds more turbo boost, right? Half pound of boost. So at 1,000 feet, you're at 0.5 PSI, 2,000, you're at 1.0, 3,000, you're at 1.5, etc. till like 8,000 feet. And then the compensation on the engine can't do any more than that. If it's got 180 horsepower up to 8,000 feet, then at 9,000, it loses 5 horse, just like that constant. So 180 horse at 8, 175 at 9,000, etc. as you go up. So a couple years ago, I gets this phone call one day from a tech in his shop down in Eastern Canada, not in Ontario. And he gets to use one of these eddy current dynos. And they run a whole bunch of cans on this dyno and give me the power peak RPMs of a list of cans. Not mentioning the horsepower, just the power peak RPMs. One popular can, like I can't believe how many cans this company sells, lost 250 RPMs and it pipe surged. One can lost 150 RPMs, so instead of being at 8,000, it was at 7,850. One can lost 100 RPM. Some cans, original 7,950 RPM. One can in particular, it gained 100 RPMs just by going whoop, to this can right there. So the minus 250 RPM, we'll call it Johnny Can. So the Johnny Can showed a power peak movement of negative 250 RPM on this eddy current dyno. But the Johnny Can company shows a horsepower gain on the Johnny Can's house dyno and their website. So what's going on? And people say that clutching is black magic? No. Exhaust pipes are black magic. Okay, here's the end of this video because I'm done. I corresponded a few times with Dynotech Jim over the years. Me writing a clutch tuning handbook, I asked him to look at some of my chapters on engines and exhaust. He copied and pasted one of his articles out into an email to me. So this is Dynotech Jim's gold. Advice. Those who buy non-stock mufflers to save weight should use their sled's digital tacks to see if the power is maintained or lost. Your clutches can act like a mini dynamometer. Always baseline with the stock muffler in an area where you can run at maximum horsepower while observing RPM. You're out at 9,000 feet, you got your stock muffler on, whoa, 8 grand, great. You've run all day with it, and now you know it runs 8 grand. We got the clutch weight dialed in so that the engine full throttle, in this particular case, is 8,000. After the day's done, then switch mufflers. And if you maintain RPM, you're in good shape. But if you lose revs, you're very likely losing horsepower. Then you must weigh the advantages of lighter weight versus lost horsepower. Well, I'd rather have the stock muffler than a can where I'm gonna fuss with the clutch weight because the power peak moved and I can't find it. I'm trying to clicker around and change flyweight and it just doesn't pull. The engine sounds like a mooing cow. Or it could be a combination of two things. A muffler that's not matched for the engine at high elevations and a clutch kit that needs more tip weight.
More tip weight.
Why? Joe Bad Man.
Programming is complete with this one.
More tip weight.
More tip weight.
This is it.